So welcome and good morning. My name is Richard and I'm honoured to be your chair for the day. I'm just going to share my screen now. So firstly, thank you all so much for being here. We've currently got nearly 100 at the conference. I think we're hoping to have 160 perhaps in a little while when everyone's arrived. If we get to 160, that would be almost 1 in every 500 people in the Ludlow constituency, which I think is a fantastic start. So my job in the next 15 minutes is to set the scene, to take you through the agenda, and explain a bit how the day will work. But before I do that, I'd like on behalf of all of you to say a heartfelt thank you to the amazing contributors you'll hear this morning and this afternoon. A special thank you to the organising committee, led very ably by Jane Cullen. And thank you, Vel, to our tech Zoom guru, Esme, who's joining us from the Netherlands. Heartfelt gratitude to everyone who's made this happen. So I just wondered if you could all reach for your unmute button and on the count of 3, just say a rousing good morning to all of our fellow colleagues. So if you can unmute, I'll say 1, 2, 3.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Hi there.
Well done.
Good morning.
Yay. Good morning.
Great to have you here.
Fabulous. Thank you ever so much. So let me just go on to the next slide. So yeah, this is the virtual conference with the 3 themes today, of transport, of buildings and energy, and land and biodiversity. So let's have a quick look at the agenda. In a few minutes, you'll get to introduce yourselves to some fellow attendees in breakout rooms. And at 10 o'clock sharp, we'll start with the important task of transport with Professor John Whiteleg, a 15-minute presentation followed by 15 minutes of questions. I'll explain how the Q&A sessions will work a little later on in my introduction. Simon Ross goes next with energy and buildings, and at 11 o'clock you'll have a well-deserved break for 10 minutes. Then promptly at 11:10, our third and final theme of the day, land and biodiversity, will be led by Nick Reed. And please stay connected to Zoom by keeping the link open during the breaks throughout the day. Don't leave and then rejoin. That would be really helpful. At 11:40, I will be explaining what you need to do to find your way to the right breakout room for the afternoon sessions. And then at 11:50, Richard Bubb will lead us elegantly towards lunch with a session on interconnectedness and community. And while on the subject of connections, it's really good to know that we have the support of the Shropshire Climate Action Partnership. I wonder, Mark Fermor, would you just unmute and say a little welcome to the south of your constituency, of your county, sorry. Are you out there? Mark Fermor, come in.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and we're delighted to join forces, really, for I'm sure what's going to be an exciting day. Hoping to learn a lot, and I know we have all the solutions. It's great to see them coming together like this. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Mark. And then after lunch, Philip Dunn, MP, will share us a short video message that he's made for us. And then after Philip, it'll be time to head to your chosen breakout room to grapple with your chosen issue. Sorry, I've just realised I've not moved my slides on. So that's land and biodiversity with Nick, and then we have into your breakout room, and then Richard Bubb. And then, the afternoon session will have 3 breakout rooms: transport, energy and buildings, and land and biodiversity. And then at 2:30, we all come back together to find out what's happened in the 2 breakout rooms you weren't in. And then it's time to wrap up and send you back out into the world to continue to fix human-induced climate change. And we'll close by 3 o'clock sharp. And I think as has already been said, we're recording all of today, both video and audio. So if you don't want to appear in that for any reason, if you could stay muted and keep your video off. And also the chat will be recorded. I think also private chat will be recorded. So yeah, just so you're aware of that. So I said I'd tell you a bit about the Q&A slots after each of our 15-minute presentations this morning. So each of our speakers, John, Simon and Nick, get 15 minutes, and then we have 15 minutes for questions. And essentially what we'd like is for you to type your questions into the chat to everyone. And please try to keep your morning questions quite general in nature. We'll have much more time in the theme breakout sessions this afternoon for you to immerse yourself in the detail of the issues. As chair, I'll get to choose the questions to put to the conveners. I'll ask the questioner, that's the person who's asked the question, to unmute, to say their name and to read their question out. And I can always jump in if we have any technical glitches during that bit. And with, what are we up to now in terms of attendees? Up to 104. So obviously with 104 and maybe more attendees and only 15 minutes for questions for each theme, you can see that I have a pretty challenging job. So please be patient and also know that everything that goes into the chat box will be followed up by the team. And one final thing, please try to keep discussions out of the chat box, because it's going to get pretty hard to find the questions if it's filling up with lots of chat as well. So please keep that just for questions. So before I share some of my thoughts, just to set the scene for the day, I'd just like to focus on what we hope to achieve as part of today. Well, let's start with the end in mind. We hope, and of course, to expect to get to net zero by 2030 in just 10 years and not 30 years. And it's a climate action conference, and the clue is in the action word. It's not a talking shop. We want to focus on what we need to do to get to net zero. And we also want to focus on the bottom up, on what we can do. So if we just have a quick look at this slide from the programme, we can see we want to share our ideas across parish, town and county councils, obviously to find a way to reach net zero by 2030, to send clear requests to national government for the help we need to get there, to reverse biodiversity loss in our area, to play our important part in COP26 in Glasgow, and to utilise local expertise constructively. We will publish a manual or a handbook on the how of today, and there will also be a report on the proceedings of the conference. Most importantly, we want to enlist you. We want you to join in to get involved in the good and important work of fixing human-induced climate change. And I'll tell you a bit more about how you can sign up to be parts of working groups later on in the day. And hopefully we can have some fun along the way. So let me set the scene a little bit now. This is a fascinating image, I think, also quite troubling, really. This shows a 90-year human life in months. Each of the blobs on this particular slide shows a month of a 90-year human life. Now, my dad is still going strong at 93, so I thought I'd do this for me. So the top left-hand blob on this particular chart is November the 9th, 1964, or November 1964, the year I was born. The red blob is today. I'm kind of 2/3 of the way through my life, maybe. January 2030, the time with which the Ludlow constituency is going to hit net zero, is the purple blob. And you can just see the number of white months between red and purple. That's obviously incredibly challenging, but also a fabulous opportunity to show what South Shropshire can do. The grey dot on the penultimate row is January 2050, where you know, the UK government have decided that would be the time to achieve net zero. And this is essentially what we face. We're at this inflection point. This is a graph showing emissions, global emissions of CO2 in gigatons per year, and the x-axis showing time. And we're at this point where the dotted light blue line goes away and down to zero, and the business as usual line goes up. That's essentially the roller coaster that we need to be on to deliver a sustainable planet for future generations. And maybe I can bring this back to me again. Here's a graph showing time versus observed and projected temperature anomaly. And you can see my mom was born in 1932. We already know when I was born. Megan, my firstborn, came along in 1999. And you can see the dramatic changes in predicted global temperature in the kind of high emission scenario in pink, in the orange in the medium, and the low in blue. And even the low, when we managed to make radical changes to CO2 output, still puts us maybe just a tiny bit above 1.5 degrees centigrade. And this is a really troubling graph for me because it looks like human-induced climate change began on the day I was born. I am obviously not guilty. I hope you respect that. So there are situations in which it is more dangerous to keep your balance than to lose it. We hear a lot about the new normal, a lot about building back better. Let's hope we can do that in a way that delivers radical reductions in CO2. And I just thought I'd share with you some of Kate Raworth's work. This is from a book called Donut Economics. And this just really highlights that there's a safe and just space for the whole of humanity to live, represented by this green donut. And most of us have overshot the outside of the donut, and we're consuming too many things, using too much water, emitting too much pollution and CO2. And most of the world's population is in a shortfall situation, or many of the world's population are in a shortfall situation where they don't have enough resources and water. And really her theory is looking about how we can draw back into the center of the donut to allow those that don't have enough in the world to develop sustainably and get more access to the things they need to live well. And I know a number of other speakers are going to be touching on this later, but I thought it's a really lovely way of thinking about the challenge that we face. And I know you've all have heard of the word déjà vu, the idea that when you see something brand new, it's almost like you've experienced it before. Well, I'd like to give you a present today, a new word, which is the opposite of déjà vu, that of vujardé. This idea that we need to see the everyday, the totally familiar things of the way we travel around our houses, our workplaces through fresh eyes. We need to see these as though for the very first time and wonder why we're doing things in the way that we're doing them, because we clearly need to do things radically different. So I leave you with vujardé. Man is the most insane species. He worships an invisible God and destroys a visible nature, unaware that this nature he's destroying is this God he's worshipping. And my final slide, there is nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a butterfly. I think you already know that South Shropshire is already a butterfly, and you're individually butterflies, but somehow the coming together of all of these people today and this very kind of bottom-up action-focused activity that we're going to see is going to show the rest of the world that the Ludlow constituency can be a butterfly with regard to net zero.